And we are live. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Positive Power Hour. I'm your host, Dan McBee, and there's my beautiful co-host, Nicole. Welcome to our show tonight. We have a lot to go over, and yet we don't have a clue of what we're talking about. No, actually, in the post that I put on Facebook, and hopefully you all have gotten the link tonight. I don't know what happened last week. We'll have to see what happens. I haven't seen any comments yet, so we'll see yet what comes on. But and Nick will stay close. What's that?
It's the dogs.
Oh, okay.
I love them.
Hi, yeah. So Kimberly's there. All right. So that shows that there's something happening.
Hi.
We have comments from the Peanut Gallery already this evening. Dog making her comments about what she thinks of the show, right?
Always got to contribute.
Jose's there too. How about that? Yay! Good to have you on board. I was meaning to text you all week long this week to see how things were going. Dinner time at 9, huh? Yeah, there's that, right? Well, we're glad you're here. Yes. So anyway, on the announcement this morning that I put out, we talked about that we're going to talk about the fact that this month is National Mental Health Awareness Day. And we touched on it a little bit last week. And quite frankly, almost every show that we do has to do with the mental being of ourselves, right? Well-being or not so well-being. And, you know, it's interesting. I have my own experience to share with you guys tonight that was kind of eye-opening to me. Some of you know that I went through a bout of severe breathing issues, a year ago or so, maybe a little longer than that. And at first they thought maybe it was COVID. And so I'd get the isolation treatment and, you know, do the whole thing that they did back in that time. And they said it was just asthma. And I said, well, okay. So they gave me all these different steroids to inhale and to take. And sometimes it would make a little bit of a difference, but not a whole lot. And it just never seemed to get much better. And they did this breathing thing that looked like a kazoo that you would use to strengthen your diaphragm, right? So the last time I spoke with my doctor, I hadn't had to use, I'd actually cut down on some of my medications, hadn't noticed much difference as far as being worse, right? And it has just gotten progressively better. And so the last time I was talking with my doctor, he says, so how are you doing? I said, well, I still get these little flutter feelings in my body. I don't know what the heck those are, but my breathing has gotten better. I usually can finish sentences and everything, which was a problem for a while, as you know, Nicole. And I'm doing better. I said, I guess it must be that breathing apparatus. He goes, well, to be honest with you, that only helps if you have a damaged diaphragm. And usually it's just like one side of the diaphragm, not both. You don't have either of those things. I said, well, then what the heck is going on? He says, it's your mind. That's what I said. I said, oh, how interesting. He goes, well, don't take it the wrong way. I don't mean that you're crazy or anything. I said, no, I already know I'm crazy. That's a different issue, right? But what it is that when you go through a breathing trauma like that, the mind is always looking out for danger, right? It's one of its primal purposes on earth is to help us alleviate danger. And so the mind picks up that, oh my God, we've got a breathing problem, and it makes the body react to that, and the emotions and all of those things react to that quote unquote crisis, right? There was no crisis. And so it was such a wonderful experience about just how dynamic the mind is. So what I've done ever since he told me that, especially if I'm feeling those little flutters in my lungs or whatever the heck is going on, I just say, okay, mind, everything's okay. Just relax. Everything's fine, right? Because as I instruct all of us on this show, right, we have to train our mind. We have to really understand that we are soul and that the mind is supposed to be working for us. And it sounds like such a simple little thing, doesn't it? But it really is that powerful. And when you understand that you are soul and that all that the soul wants is love and all of the positive attributes that come from love, and see, even the dog knows, right? then you start making changes that are very powerful in your life. All right. And I know that most people will hear that and go, oh, yeah, right. But when you actually start to do it, when you become conscious of the fact that you are soul and that your mind is supposed to do what you tell it to do, not the other way around, then everything starts to change. Does that make sense to you, Nicole?
Yes.
And have you had that same kind of experience for yourself?
Oh, yeah. You got to be a watcher of it. You got to really pay attention. Yeah. I haven't had the experience of health-wise, I don't think, but or breathing. But yeah, you have to really, okay, you're all right. You know, it's not this, it's a old thing that pops in. Like we talked about that old record player, you know.
Right.
Oh no, that's not true. Thank you.
Yeah. When the mind's giving you all that garbage, right? About your flaws, pointing out all of the areas in which you're not perfect, right?
Yeah.
When, the reality is you're exactly the way God wants you to be at the moment, right?
Yes.
And changes happen when it's like the old thing about you can either go kicking or screaming or you can go in the air-conditioned limo. Either way, you're going to go, right?
Absolutely.
So the more we can stay at peace, the more we can stay in the moment, the more we get to experience the magic that God has in store for us every single day, right? I get to see it every single day. I get to experience it every single day. And it's awesome. It's fun, right? And, I've told that story on here about how I tell the kids when they come into my line at the register that I ask them if they're having fun, right? And if the kid didn't get what he wanted, he's like, well, not yet. And I said, well, it's okay. I just want to remind you that you're supposed to have fun every day. It's a rule, right? Of course, I'm the one that started the rule, but that's okay. But then I turn to the parents and I say, look, I asked the kids that, but really I'm asking the parents because they forget. And occasionally, especially the husband and the wives will go, yep, the seriousness of life gets in the way and we forget, don't we? I said, yeah, exactly right. And then I remind them about how what we show our children is much more powerful than what we tell our children. Yes. Right? And I share the experience of how my dad was a severe worrier. Not warrior, worrier. And so guess what I became as a young adult?
Yeah, my dad was too. No.
Really? Do I know him? Chronic worrier, right? And so, we have to be so clear about the demonstration that we're giving our children of how to live and how to be, right? And most of us, I don't know that any of us really thought about it that way as we were going along the process here in life, right? But, now as you get older and more experienced, and as I say so often, age does not necessarily equate to wisdom, right? I know a lot of really old people that are really freaking stupid and haven't evolved very much, right? Some of them are still wearing the baseball cap backwards and wearing white tube socks and smoking cigarettes. And, just they're still locked in their teen years and haven't grown past that, right? So wisdom is about recognizing thought processes or events or experiences and being able to look at them through clear eyes and make a good decision for themselves, right? Like we've talked about the fact that most of us have grown up to one degree or another with racist thoughts and beliefs that we got from our parents, right? And at some point, we have to look around and go, wait a minute, that doesn't fit for me, right? Otherwise, we're just parrots, and we just copy the same things our parents did. And let's face it, that it was a different time back then, right? So, and that's the same thing with mental health, right? One of the, as I share so often, one of the great graces that God gave me was getting attacked by a guy with a razor blade and cut up so bad that I couldn't work. And I really couldn't even be out in public because I scared people, right? And the great grace about that is it showed me that my mind was taking me to places that weren't very safe, and that I was doing things that weren't very good, right? That didn't make my life a quality life. And so God took me out. I believe God took me out of that whole thing with that attack to say, time out. And it took me several years after that to really get past all that stuff and start to grow in a good way. So mental health, I was told I would never be able to work. Excuse me. I would never be able to work again. I was so gross looking. I thought I was going to be single the rest of my life. I was told that the mental doctors weren't sure I was going to come back from the mental breakdown, that I was going to be gone, that I was just going to be a lost soul. And thank God I refused to believe any of that. And I kept working towards where I want to be, right? Was it easy? No, it was hard, right? It was made easier once I started wearing the whispers, right? That helped a great deal, but it's work, right? It's work. But it starts with paying attention to who you really are instead of who your mind has told you that you are. All of those false beliefs about being not good enough, not smart enough, that you make all kinds of mistakes, and you just keep ruminating over those mistakes over and over and over and over, and the beatings are just awful, right? Now, I know you never had any of that, Nicole, right? I mean, you never beat yourself up at all, right?
No.
Not at all, right? And I'm sure nobody in our audience tonight has beat themselves up at all, that they all are very kind and gentle with themselves.
I must say, though, the kids do talk about adulting not being quite as fun as they thought it was going to be at one time.
Oh, they've all said that.
Yes.
Yes. It kind of reminds me of that commercial with the guy that decides to quit his job, and he tears his suit off, and he's just got his dress shirt on, and he's running outside. I'm free. And then he looks around, and he's in a desert all by himself, and he's like, oh my God, what have I done? Right? It's kind of the way adulting is.
I didn't say names.
No, but someone did. Don't expose us, Mama. Well, and that's the way it is for all of us, right? Is that, you can't wait to be an adult. It's kind of like I love to joke with young parents who have a young child that's just starting to crawl or maybe just beginning to walk, right? And when they start walking, you can see that panic look on the parent's face, because the kid's darting all over the place and they're afraid they're going to run out in the street. And, oh my God, I said, yeah, isn't it funny? We can't wait till they start to walk, and then they start to walk and it's, oh my God, right?
Yeah.
Same way with adulting, right? It's like, God, you get into this world and you got to get a job and you got to make money and you got to have all these responsibilities. And it was so much easier when it was mom that was dealing with putting food on the table and a roof over your head and all those things, right? You didn't have to worry about it back then, or at least not as much as you do now. So, most of us weren't really prepared very well for adulthood, right? And let's face it, the schools do a lousy job of it. And quite frankly, it's not their job, right? But now, because, the economy is such that both moms and dads both have to work, where does it come for the life lessons for the children of how to get past school and get into an adult life and create things for themselves, right? It's not easy. So and this goes back to the mental health stuff too, right? It's like your mom, God rest her soul, when she smartened up and threw my butt out the door, she mentioned about, I said, well, for you, it's so easy because you're so confident. And I just didn't have any confidence. Right. And she goes, no, I feel inadequate all the time. I said, well, you've never talked about it. She goes, well, it's because we don't talk about our problems. There are problems. I said, well, how can you grow if the only information you're getting is the information you've got? Right. And that's the power of this program, of our hour that we spend every week, right? Is that you get a chance to listen to other people talk about things that are going on. Hopefully we'll hit a nerve now and then about, how the negative mind chatter, right? The quiet desperation that the huddled masses live in, right? And all of those things that are keeping us from living life in the sunlight of the Spirit, that keep us from that. So, if you are feeling depressed, go see a doctor, go see a therapist, get some medication that can help put your brain chemicals back in the right balance. It's not that you're flawed. It's not that you're a weak person. It's that for God only knows what reason your brain chemicals are off. And here's the weird thing about mental health. They can take a blood test and determine if different parts of your body are functioning the way they're supposed to. They can hook you up to EKGs and see if the rhythm of your heart is working right? They can determine the functioning of so many parts of your body, but not the mind.
Yeah.
They know, or at least they suspect, that there are brain chemicals that get out of balance, but they don't have any way of measuring what those are or how that level should be.
Same with hormones.
That's exactly right. And so if your hormones are off, you don't blame yourself because your hormones are off. Well, maybe you do, right? I mean, let's face it, we can blame ourselves for almost everything, right? But that's the point, is that the stigma we have about depression and about, manic depression and about schizophrenia and all of those things that we don't talk about because they're scary and they're too close to ourselves, right? And so if we mention that, I'm not feeling really stable today, that might scare somebody standing next to me just wondering if I'm going to grab a baseball bat and hit them in the head or something, right? So,
or worse. Yeah.
So we tend to keep that stuff in us and we don't talk about it. And that squirrel cage is running faster and faster, right? The hamster running in the wheel, right? It's just going, and that's what we're doing in our head. And that's the mental illness as far as I'm concerned, right? So if you are feeling like you're not running on 8 cylinders, right? Get some help. Get them, and don't just let it go because it's too important, right? You can't do the work that we're talking about here today if you're so depressed that you're having all you can do to get up out of bed.
Yeah.
It's too hard to work through that, right?
So what kind of resources are available? I think you can dial 211.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think there's a 988 number now too.
Right.
So just so we can,
even if you don't know those phone numbers, call clergy, call your city you live in, there's you just get out a phone or just call 911 and say, hey, I'm feeling, suicidal. I need some help. Right. And they will get you the help you need. Right. Don't let it get to that point is our point. Right.
Yeah.
We're on the power hour. We're believers of short-term suffering, right?
Yes.
We don't need to linger in misery. We've done enough of that, right? So we want to live in the sunlight of the Spirit, where we see the goodness within ourselves, and then we can see the goodness in others, right? Because if all we see is the badness in us, guess what we're going to see out in the world?
Bad.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. So, if you try really hard to stay positive and stay up and it just doesn't seem to be working for you, get some help. Right. Of course, we consider a really great help is to start with whispers, right? It's a lot easier. It's a lot.
I got my 2. I'm not going to go to my secret spot because.
Very good. Yeah, you're not going to do that on camera. Very good. Yeah, there she goes. There she goes. But yes, because they help to balance out everything. All right. When we are energy. That's what we are. When we leave this plane, the body stays. What leaves? Energy, right? And the energy within us gets bogged down by all of the thoughts, the emotions, the dramas, the traumas, the overpopulation we're living in, the electrified world we're living in. All of those things throw our bodies out of balance. And that was what I got to experience on a major level because I couldn't, I would start the day off with clear idea what I was going to accomplish and what I needed to do. And I'd feel great at 8 o'clock in the morning. And by 1 o'clock, I'd have no idea what the hell happened. So, of course, I'd have to beat myself up. And of course, I'd have to drink over it, right? Because that's what I did back in the days, right? Which only makes it worse, right? Which is what we all learn the hard way, is that the things we do when we beat ourselves up only beat us up even more. So it's a cycle effect that just is hard to break. But we have to. Yes. If we're look, as you get older, you get to realize that life really is short. When you're Jose's age or Kimberly's or Melinda's or even your age, Nicole, although I think you're starting to grasp it already too, right?
I am young.
Yes, you are. Absolutely. I was telling some kids at work the other day that in my day, when we talked about getting stoned, we literally got stoned.
Oh, geez.
They love that.
That is great.
So yes. So that's what I wanted to talk about tonight. Really is about, if you're having a struggle, don't feel bad. I mean, that's easy to say, right? Because you feel bad. That's why you're depressed, right? But
don't stay stuck.
Yeah, but be kind to yourself and reach out, right? Reach out to a friend. A friend, if you share with your friend that, I've been depressed for about 2 weeks now and I can't seem to shake it. Your friend isn't going to disown you. If they do, they're not your friend, right? Go for another one. But do something constructive for yourself. As if that's the most you can muster is to reach out to somebody. It's a good start. And for those of you that need to talk to somebody, let me, here's someone you can call right here, right? You can call
phone
me.
Home.
Yeah, phone home. I'm here for you, all right? If you're having a hard time, give me a call. I'll remind you how awesome you are, all right? And we'll get you back on track. So don't hesitate. Give me a call. If I can't answer the phone, I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. But give me a call. I'll be there for you. All right? Yeah. So I'm going to leave that up there for a while. But I also want to mention this one right here because this is another part of what we're talking about. Be still and know that I am God, right? If your mind is racing from the past to the future and the past to the future to the past to the future to the past to the future, you're not being where you need to be. All right. And that's the first sign you need to have is that, whoa, wait a minute. My mind's racing. This isn't good. I remember that I'm supposed to be in the moment, right? I have a friend that struggles with depression. And every once in a while, he'll say, well, I got to keep it a day at a time. And I said, no. For you, you have to keep it a moment at a time. A day is way too long. That's too much suffering, right? So you have to recognize every moment, where am I? And that's the phrase I gave him to use all the time. Where am I? Am I in the past? Or am I in the future? Or am I in the moment? If you're feeling troubled, I guarantee you, you're not in the moment. You're in the past or you're in the future. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. And most of us, I can only speak for myself with complete confidence, right? Although I'm 98% sure about the rest of you, is that we spend so much of our time in the past and in the future. Neither one of them are real. You can't change the past, and you can only make an effort towards the future, but you can't change what is to be, right? So it's how you respond to the future that matters. But you can't respond positively if you're not in the moment, right? The most powerful thing you can get is, number one, be still and know that I am God, and recognize that you need to live in the moment, because that's where the magic happens.
Yes.
I can't tell you how many times I get God shots daily that just remind me, right? Like, I watched a man on a walker the other day, and he's struggling so hard just to put 10 feet, right? And it reminded me to be grateful that I have a young step, right? And that I walk around like a young man, because I feel like a young man for the most part, right? I have my moments like everybody, but I think I do pretty darn well, right? And so I'm grateful for that. Now, if I was thinking about the past or worrying about the future, I wouldn't even see that guy. And I wouldn't get that God shot, right? To remind me to be in a state of grace, because I am in a state of grace, right? God, the fact that I'm taking in oxygen and breathing it out is a sign that God is giving me grace, right? So when I can remember that, the more I can remember to be in his grace, or I already am in his grace. And if I'm in the past or if I'm in the future, I'm forgetting that I'm in God's grace, right? Then I get to experience life on a much higher level, right? That sunlight of the spirit we talk about so much, right? That happiness and joyousness that other people feel. And you don't even need to know it, right? And yet you're impacting their lives in very positive ways. And if that's impacting them, what is that doing to you, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So again, it's not finding the right person that's going to make you happy. It's not finding the right job that's going to make you happy. It's not finding the right restaurant that makes the meal perfect, right? It's none of those things. It's not the vacation. It's not the house. It's not the car. It's none of those things. The only thing that makes you happy is your decision to be happy.
Yes.
And if you're depressed, recognize that you're not happy and that you need to do something about it. There's only one person that can do that. That's you, right? Yeah, well, whoever, right? Yes, it's up to each of us. That's the responsibility that we have to God, to say, okay, I'm struggling and I don't know how to fix it.
Yes.
Right? Because there are plenty of people that know how to fix it. Why do it the hard way, right? It's like I remember that story I shared about the boss that I was working in the back and the label machine was jammed and I didn't know how to fix it. And he walked in and I said, hey, do you know how to fix this? He goes, well, did you try to fix it yourself? And I said, well, no, I thought I'd ask somebody that would probably know, right? And it's like, why would you want me to spend 3 hours to do it if you know how to do it in 5 minutes? I mean, that's what teaching is all about, right?
Yes.
And so, like I've got my phone number I put up there. Let me put it back up there because I want to make sure you all know you can call me. Running around, and there's Melly saying she's running around taking Richard to training sessions, but she loves us, and we love you too, sweetheart. But my phone number.
Hi, Richard.
Yeah. Oh, was Richard there too?
Well, she's running him around, so yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, right? Yeah. Hi, Richard. Yeah. So there's that phone number again, right? The reason that I want you to call me if you're struggling, because I've been through that. I know what it feels like, right? I don't know what depression is like, right? I cause it. I don't get it, right? But I know how you feel when you're depressed. I've experienced that side of it, right? So I know how to change that very quickly. You don't have to struggle so hard. And that's what we're all about here on the Power Hour, right? Is we want to repower you because you've lost your power. You've forgotten that God is your power. And you've allowed yourself to believe that you're less than.
Plug into the source.
Yes. God made you perfect, just the way you are. We forget, right?
Yes.
So I'm here to remind you that you're awesome. And the more you feel that, the more of a positive power you'll have to share with others.
See, no, you're awesome.
Huh?
No, you're awesome.
Exactly, right? And, as you realize that you have that energy within you and you start to share it, when you learn that you're much more than you thought you were, when you accept the fact that you're God's child, instead of thinking that he made everybody else good, but he screwed up with you, right? That's called that terminal uniqueness that we all develop at some point, right? Or most of us anyway. That, God made everything perfect, but he sure screwed up with me because I'm a mess, right? And I'm sure everybody has felt that from time to time. So I know I'm sharing things that you all can relate to, right? So when you start to discover that maybe you're not that turd on the side of the road that you thought you were, that's half the lesson. That's half the grace, right? And then the other half is what I've gotten to do for 40 some odd years now, right? Is to help other people realize that they're awesome people, right? And Nicole, I've spent 40 years doing this, right? Yeah. I mean, when we lost everything in 2008 and I asked God, why would God do that to me? I thought this was what he wanted me to do the rest of my life, right? And it just broke my heart. And then I realized that it doesn't matter where I'm at. I work everywhere I go. Yeah, I know you know. So that's the grace, right? The grace is first recognizing that you're much better than you think you are, which then allows you to start doing things in a much more positive way, makes your life a lot more positive, makes your family life a lot more positive, but then it also affects everybody around you, right? And that's, again, why we talk about the whispers, because they radiate out 50 feet, affects all of the people around you. And, I get people that just walk up to me and they just stand there, right? And they say, oh, it just feels so good to stand here. I said, oh, I know, I understand, right? That's really cool, right? So mental health is really what all health is about. If your mind is working wrong or not functioning at the level it ought to, and it isn't working as your assistant or as your servant, it's going to affect your emotions. And then it's going to affect your physical body. I am absolutely certain that the reason I healed so well from cancer treatments, right, was because of my attitude and the way I feel and that energy that I carry, right? I know it has a positive effect compared to people that are scared to death that they've got cancer and they're going to die, right? Well, we're all self-fulfilling prophets. So if that's what you're thinking is going to happen, it's probably a pretty good odds that you're going to make it happen.
Look, Cheryl's here, and she says God does not make mistakes.
That's right. Did she comment on here? Let
Yes.
me get to the comments there. We got some. Oh, okay. Richard says, hey. Yes, thank you. And there's Cheryl. That's right, Cheryl. He doesn't make mistakes. And we don't either. They're just learning opportunities, right? They're mistakes if we keep making the same thing over and over again, right?
I've made a few mistakes.
Have you really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I know it's hard to believe.
I know. I'm shocked.
But isn't that most of them?
But isn't that the nice thing, Nicole, is that now you can make a mistake and laugh it off rather than making a mistake and the daggers come out and the whips come out and you just beat on yourself for God knows how long, right? Not that any of you have ever done that. I'm sure you haven't, right? That's just me and Nicole that have done that. Nobody else has ever, beat themselves up at all, I'm sure. But just in case you have, let's take a break from it. Let's resolve that from now on, we're going to be kinder to ourselves. All right. Even if you've reached out and tried to accomplish a goal and you didn't succeed at it, it doesn't mean you failed. It just means you got the one step closer. Right. So everything is about how we look at everything. Right. And so if you feel like your mental state isn't where you want it to be, again, reach out. Let us know. Give me a call, right? We want you to be happy because it's kind of selfish, really. But I know I feel a lot better when I make somebody feel better, right? Feeds my soul. Makes me really happy, right? When I know I make a difference.
Yeah.
And the great grace that I've gotten is that I know without a single doubt in my being that I make a difference every single day. Every single day. How cool is that? And the truth of the matter is, and I know you know this to be true, Nicole, that so has everybody on our call tonight.
Yes.
We've all made a difference in people's lives. Every single one of you, whether you know it or whether you admit it, you make a difference. And I know for a fact that most of the group on our call tonight have made amazing differences in people's lives.
Yes.
And if we can remember that, it's not egotistical, right? I mean, I don't know about all of you, but I grew up with the idea that if you thought well of yourself, you were vain, egotistical. And, the best way for you to be is that, no, I'm not worthy and I'm not good and all that stuff. And, I was raised up Catholic and, Catholics and Jews both have the most guilt-ridden religions going, right? You got to feel guilty about eating fish on Friday or, whatever the hell it is, right? Jesus died on the cross for you, you sinner, right? Goodness gracious. Rather than, God loves you and God wants you to be happy. Right. So anyway, that's for enough about mental health, awareness. But I like the word awareness about mental health, right? I always kind of chuckle when I call Kaiser to make an appointment. And a recording comes on that says, if you're having a physical or a mental emergency, hang up and dial 911. And my first thought is, if I'm having a mental emergency, I'm probably the last person that's going to know it.
Yeah.
Right? It's everybody else that's going to know that I'm having a mental emergency. If I'm manic, I'm just having a good old time. I don't care, right? And I can only imagine if you're severely depressed, you don't care if people know you're depressed, right? You're just depressed. That's all you can think about, right? So the mental health awareness is up to each and every one of us to be aware of how are we feeling, right? It's like I went through this exercise this week. I work a lot, right? I mean, I work a lot. And when I'm not at work in my job, I'm at work at home. And if I'm not at work at home, I'm work with nursing care and housework and all the different things that have to be done in the course of a day. And I'm usually pretty busy, 12 hours a day, maybe 14 hours a day, right? And then I'll finally let myself go to sleep for a few hours, and I get up and then I do that all over again. And then there's a few days where I'm just really tired, which is unusual for me because I've always had so much energy that I could do that every single day and not even think about it, right? It's just another day, here I go. Now, as I'm getting more senior in life, it seems like I can do the same things I used to do. I just can't do them for as long as I used to do them, right? And that's part of the aging process, and it just happens. But I don't like it, right? I just want to go and go and go and go and do and do and do and do, because unfortunately, I really am a human doing rather than a human being. Sitting and doing nothing is just not something I'm real comfortable with for a long period of time. Never has been. So it's just something I've had to get used to. But I was kind of beating myself up a little tiny bit this last week because I felt like I should have been doing more. Right? And I had to take a minute and say, Dan, you know, a little rest is okay, right? If you're tired, you need to get some rest, right? And that's that self-love that we all have to do for ourselves. And, you know, and I've shared some blemishes here today, right? About things I've gone through, like the breathing thing, right? But that's the whole thing about life, is that we have these experiences that go on, but we need to be aware. Mental health awareness, right? How am I feeling about being tired? Yeah. God love Kate. If I have a couple of days where I'm saying, God, I'm kind of tired today, she'll say, have you had your blood checked lately? No, I'm just tired. But that's the medical raising that she was raised by a doctor, right? Yes. So everything's you got to get a blood test, you got to do this and this and get some rest. But again, mental health awareness. All right. So once more, before we're going to cut a little short tonight, but I just want to remind all of you, be aware of how you're thinking. Be aware of how you're feeling. Are you in the past? Are you in the future? Are you beating yourself up? Because I remember back in the days when I was just absolutely brutal with myself, I'd be beating myself up for hours before I even realized I was doing it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's pretty unconscious, right? But that's the way most of us do it. So we have to become more aware of what we're thinking, of what we're feeling, and what we're doing. Right? And when you can gain that, even if you're depressed, you'll shorten the amount of time that you're depressed and the severity that you're depressed, because you'll recognize that I need to take action. I need to do something. Even if it's just getting off the couch and going outside in the sunlight, right?
That's vitamin K.
Yes.
That's vitamin K.
Right. Vitamin K. That's exactly right. But, when we're depressed, all we want to do is sit, right? Or lay in bed or whatever, right? And nobody's going to be able to, I can tell you times where I've just, walked in and opened up all the blinds and said, get up, get out and go do something, right? Because that's what you got to do. Otherwise, you'll just waste away. And that's not what God wants for us, right? There's too many wonderful things we can do. Help our brothers and sisters to get, especially when you've struggled like that. Just imagine how awesome it'll be when you can share with somebody else what you went through and how you got out of it, right? That's what I'm doing here, right? That's why I spend an hour every Monday with all of you, is to help you to get to feel better about yourself.
Yes. To empower yourself.
Yes, it's empowering you to get going and live your life the way you want it to be, right? Look at Melinda spending so much time helping Richard to get where he wants to go in his life, right?
Yes.
And they do it
the
in
whole
a gentle
family
way. They're not one of those parents that are just, trying to make their kid become famous and rich so that they can get fed off of it, right? They're just doing it because that's where his passion is.
Yes.
And they support him that way. And I honor them so much for doing that.
Yes.
Anyway, Nicole, today, if you see somebody who doesn't have a smile on their face, what will you do?
Well, today and the days ahead, if I see someone without a smile, I'll give them one of mine.
And why would you do that?
Because it's free, and it'll make them feel good. And it makes me feel good.
Yes. And it even makes the dog feel good.
Sorry, guys. I locked them in today thinking they wouldn't bark.
That's quite all right. That's quite all right. So anyway, on Mental Health Awareness Month, we'll talk more about it through the rest of this month, okay? Yes. But again, the most important thing is, if you're struggling, reach out. Yes. There's my phone number, right? You've got friends. And I know that, it's like, oh, I don't want to bother anybody. I'm not worthy, right?
That's a lie.
Oh, that's a lie. That's your mind feeding you garbage.
Yes.
Your soul wants you to be loved, right? It wants you to love and be loved. So for Nicole, I'm Dan, wishing you all a very powerful new week coming up. Do your best to be kind to yourself, because when you're kind to yourself, you'll be kinder to others. And know that we love you, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Take good care. Bye-bye.
Bye.